when we talk about smart grids, there are varying definitions of what a smart grid should be. But I think predominantly a smart grid is a three-way relationship between distributors, suppliers and customers.
It's really a situation where electricity is managed more proactively. Customers are more involved in the management of their own energy. There's much more interaction between its generation and supply and its use by the individual homeowner.
Smart Grid is bringing together new technologies, new commercial offerings, way of doing business, and kind of bringing it all together and giving customers a better service where they can actually benefit and save money and take a bit more control over their energy.
As a country, we've committed to decarbonising our economy and decarbonising heating and transport. And we see at least two ways of doing that. One is through network technology, and the other is what we call customer flexibility. And we want to understand how much benefit there is in network flexibility, how much in customer flexibility, and in what situation you do use each. So customer trials are a really important part of finding solutions for the future. The customer trials cover a very wide range of customers, from large numbers of small domestic customers through to small and medium-sized businesses, large industrial and commercial customers, and also small generators. And the trials are different depending which of those customer groups you're looking at.
So as a partner on the project, British Gas, the main thing we bring to it is customer-facing trials, which involves all the way through to designing the trials, recruiting the customers, installing technology, and then finally collecting the data and passing it through to our project partner, Durham University. The reason why we're doing it is really to understand customers' energy consumption today, what it might look in the future, and looking to what extent customers are actually flexible in their usage and how we can influence that. So we've got 22 different trials. We've got 18 which are with residential customers, and then we've got 4 which are with small businesses, medium-sized businesses as well. So we've got customers with solar PV, electric vehicles, heat pumps, etc. But the interesting ones we're looking at are demand-side response. So we've got 4 different types of demand-side response. We've got time of use tariffs, which is basically different prices at different times of the day. We've got restricted hours, which is a combination of a time of use tariff and some home automation. We've got direct control, calling a dynamic response when there's a specific need on the network. And finally, we're looking at within-premise balancing for customers who have solar PV, trying to incentivise them to use their energy when they're generating it. So there's a couple of ways we're looking to do that.
What we're trying to find out from the trials is whether customers can and to what extent are willing to adjust when and how much they use the network. When it comes to the large industrial and commercial customers, we're looking for demand that we can call at a time that we as a network operator need it. So perhaps short reductions in their demand or increase in generation onto the network for say 20 or 30 minutes that we could call at quite short notice.
It might be the use of standby generation that they need just in case there is a power cut, which they can help us meet peak demand. Or it might be in the case of some customers that they could not use electricity for a period of half an hour or so, which would actually help us manage that peak load. We're doing trials in both areas.
National Energy Action are the National Fuel Poverty Charity campaigning for affordable warmth across the United Kingdom. NEA's role in the programme itself, we actually teamed up with the Durham Energy Institute, Durham University, the social science team there, and we've been really the kind of the gatherers and hunters of the data. So in actually conducting the second phase, if you like, and we used what's known as a thematic framework to conduct that analysis, and all that does is basically enable us to theorise and categorise what people are saying to us and put it into various kind of pots, if you like. So what we'd end up with by the end of analysing all of the interviews is a nice crisp kind of quotations around washing clothes, showering practices and cooking practices, and you could then cross-correlate those with the kind of demographic information to see whether there's any correlations between what people are telling us about their regimes within the home and what they actually do on a daily basis. Before we actually made contact with respondents, British Gas used their call centre located in Leeds to actually make calls to domestic consumers around the North East Yorkshire and Humber and recruit them onto the trials.
First of all, I became aware of this CNLR programme through an email from British Gas inviting me to be involved in the project. I was very interested in the idea of generating hot water from the solar panels that were on the roof. The idea of being able to use all the electricity that I generate was very, very appealing. Having talked to somebody from British Gas, I was told that there's this idea of being able to have a unit which could send all my excess generation to a hot water tank to heat hot water. I thought it was a fantastic idea. As part of the project, I got a smart meter and a smart monitor so I can see more clearly how much energy is being used. So in terms of information, the CNLR project has helped me to monitor what's going on. We tend to sort of look at what we're generating through the smart meter and so on, and put appliances on to suit the current conditions. If it happens to be particularly sunny and there's a wash that needs to go on, then that's when it goes on rather than at night. The reason I installed alternative energy was because I feel it's important from an environmental point of view to not be burning fossil fuels and using gas and electricity generated from those sources. So being able to contribute back to the national grid, to be able to generate my own energy, was something that I particularly favoured.
Two specific pieces of technology we're using on this trial within British Gas are part of demand-side response at the domestic or customer level. So we're calling them smart grid-ready technologies, things like the smart washing machine and smart heat pump. And the reason we call them smart technologies is because they can actually be used interactively with the grid system to manage demand, especially in periods of peak demand.
I'm part of a 10 pilot installs. Its particular smart function, the smart washing machine, is that it can receive a signal from a network operator. So a network operator through a supplier such as British Gas can send a signal to a group of washing machines, and on our demonstration project we'll have 150 washing machines receiving signals at different times.
As an installation, it's pretty much the same as a conventional washing machine. Other than obviously it links to the internet. So there's a green comms kit. What that does, it links into your broadband, what you have in the property at the moment. The washing machine sends a signal to that to let it know how much load it's using at what times of the day. We at the other end can extract that information from the green comms and put it on a database so we can build up a profile of usage, and that's basically what the green comms does. It gives us feedback as exactly when and how the washing machine is being used.
I think with the new heating systems there was a bit of a learning curve for customers. It's quite different to the heat system they had before, so we had to make sure that we had the education that went with it so customers understood what the new heating system was, how it worked, and so they were comfortable using that from the start.
We've been looking at energy efficient systems for a couple of years. I contacted British Gas to ask them what sort of things that they did and how it worked, and they said about the nano system. They said that would meet my requirements. It's an air-to-air source heat pump being monitored by Durham University. They're taking all the information via the internet, so we don't physically have to do anything. They just source all the information from that. It's very rural around here. The weather temperatures really drop rapidly, and where the old system we used to have it on a timer, the system on this one it will be a nice constant temperature so that it's not going up and down all the time. We're not getting younger, so as old age pensioners it appeals to us, and at the end of the day our pocket will be a little bit better for it.
Predominantly all the customers on the trials have smart meters or some kind of metering that allows us to take a whole house view of their load and generation. We've also in some trials got some more what we call disaggregated monitoring, some more inline monitoring that is specific to a low carbon technology. So we've got the whole house view and we have an inline view.
Under the stairs next to the consumer unit, I've got another meter that records the whole house. This looks at cooking, heating of hot water, dry white goods, wet white goods, and also consumer electronics. So Durham University, who are working on our project, can pick out individual items of consumption from the whole, and therefore it'll help them predict the future electricity use in 2020 and 2050, and that will be used to update planning standards for network operators.
In terms of this initiative and the landscape for smart grid, certainly in the UK this is the first of its kind in terms of it being not only centric to the networks and the distribution side of the chain, but also to the customer-facing trials. It's the first where we have that information being received from the monitoring occurring on the network and the network-facing trials allied with the customer-facing trials as well. So we've got a complete end-to-end view now of how customers generate demand electricity.
There's been a lot of enthusiasm. Some people have been really enthusiastic. Very few people have dropped out of the trials. And some people are really engaged with some of the concepts we're trying to encourage here, such as behavioural change, shifting their demand patterns. We've got a lot of equipment deployed in people's houses, and we're starting to get some real data back. One of the sort of fascinating things that we'll learn from that is how flexible customers are in their approach to their energy use. Are they willing to shift some of their energy using behaviours in the household in response to price signals? How are they coping with some of the new technologies we deployed? Are they taking advantage of them? Are they adapting to them well? And are they working well in the field? Are they helping us to shift that demand out of peak?
We've had some really interesting initial findings, particularly on the time of use tariffs, where we've had customers make some real behavioural change. They've reduced their consumption during peak by 10% on average, and they've actually reduced their overall consumption by 3%. So we're really happy with that. That was kind of what we set out to achieve, and it's great to actually see that change in customers' behaviour.
If we come to the industrial and commercial and the distributed generators, we don't have there a small number of customers, but we're actually doing a lot of work to actually explore the detailed commercial arrangements, what would enable them to take this up more, what the barriers are to this becoming more widespread in the current arrangements. So you have a very diverse range of outputs. In some cases it's quantitative data sets, in other cases it's reports on barriers and things that would also encourage uptake.
So the data and the learnings ultimately coming out of this, not only necessarily in the statistical data, but also the customer behavioural trials and lessons learnt in rolling out a project of this scale, will be of use to all DNOs throughout the country, Ofgem, the likes of DEC, so that we fully disseminate all our learnings and with the hope and ultimate objective of deferring the need for network reinforcement, accelerating the uptake of low carbon technologies to try to decarbonise the networks going forward.